So you remember when I was talking about the front, or the present as we called it, and I watched you and you were doing your present, and every time the dog was incorrect, you were having to then shuffle back. So you were standing there, the dog wasn't quite straight or it wasn't in the right position. You'd already called it into position, then you gave it another chance. So then you shuffle back until it's straight. And each one of those, you're giving it a chance. The point being, you want to create a system where you have one chance and one chance only to get it right. If you're not right, I'm going to sit you or get you to do another task, but go on a box, but no, you're at an angle, sit. I'll go back, and it's a fresh repetition, which you must get right the first time. Now, in order to give the dog a chance, we don't just stand there in the wide open every time. We need a system or objects or steps in place that we can fall back on, so that we can give the dog as much of a chance of getting the repetition right the first time. So the examples are, we don't just always stand in no man's land. We have things that we can fall back on. So we want to, when we're doing the chair, and yeah, we saw the early idea, it's just one system and they're all versions of the same thing. But we were luring the puppy in, and the idea being there's two elements to present, which is, and stop that and then restart it if you need to restart it. Like you've got the nose, and once we stand up, the nose is the easy bit. That's the bit that we can all get right, because we can lure the nose in. The tricky bit that we always have to be aware of is the arse being in line with us no matter what orientation we are. And it's easier in a straight line, and once we set them up at angles, then the arse tends to hang out wide. So you have the legs system, you have the three-sided box that we do on the dumbbell hold and whatnot on the table, and then you can, all versions of the same thing. So Mario Verslip gets football cones, other people, albeit this is long, but once you stand up, you can put a row of these and make a channel, like a landing strip. Now I can stand up, and they're all versions on the same theme, which start with this one, which is my legs, and they're only as wide as the dog, so that he has to be straight. So we lure him in, but his nose must be there. He must bring his ass in line, land the plane, and then up the runway. It's not just drag him across my legs, because then what we do is we lure the dog to be out of position at an angle. I bring his nose, and just like heel work and all those skills where we twist and they're on the rear leg awareness pot, the same manipulation with our twist of our hand. I can bring his nose here, twist my wrist, his rear leg goes ding, 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 ding. So now he goes from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And when he's on the runway, then I can land the puppy and he comes in between the legs. Well, so then we have all those skills. So why are all these things relevant? Because as soon as we start standing up, if we're assuming we've used the chair method, or as we start standing up and we start taking away the training aids, the dog has more of a chance to be wrong. So the advice would be is find a system, whether it's the box, whether it's the land, some form of barriers. But if I'm standing still, and the chair system goes through leaning against the wall system as one variant. So I can throw a bit of food to the side, I send him out to that side here. He must come into my landing box. So if I try and do it, oh, yeah. Here. Here. You've got to be straight. So what do I do when I stand up taller then? You want to set up situations where without the distance and they're coming in straight at any length, you want to set him up at an angle to you, but now I can put one leg. Depending on if my dog's to my left, I do this side, so I progress off the wall. Why? Because if I'm here, the dog can just go with his nose, but leave his arse out at any angle. But if I'm here, he can do whatever he wants with his head. This dog won't do it, but if he comes in with his head and he's hanging out in this outside, not in the channel, that doesn't get rewarded. Solve the problem. He comes into the channel, he gets the reward. When we come away from the wall, when I put him at an angle, I want to make sure to remind him of the same idea. He must be straight. So, but we have an aid rather than standing in no man's land and hoping for hell. Thor, come here. sit. So if he's off to my side, albeit the dog knows what he's doing, sit. I can put my leg out in front of him so that he has a barrier. If he were to sit, if he were to just bring his head in, my leg blocks him. Sit. Here. And he has to come around the barrier and same on the other side. So what you then have is with all these tools is a means of not doing what you were doing, which is if my dog's not straight, but I give him another chance, I have two things. He learns that he doesn't have to be correct the first time. And secondly, you make them too tight to the groin. That's okay if your sport doesn't care about that, but it can get stronger and stronger and stronger. And especially IGP, that's definitely not what you want because you're going to lose points if you do that. So you have to be aware of this shuffling method. It's going to create a problem that you don't want. And secondly, well, my dog isn't straight. He's at an angle. I see that he's going to be at an angle. I have a means of freestyling some aid to the dog if I can't grab my chair. But don't forget, there is no reason why you can't take a chair into the field to do your long recall, or take a fisherman's little chair, like a little stool, or have a post that I can lean up against and start making problems a little bit easier and play around with these tools. That would be my advice, rather than giving a dog a chance and a chance and a chance, is have tools to make sure he has to be right the first time, but I can help him be right and get good repetitions every single time. That's my advice.